We're here for the 50th anniversary of Rossmoor, and like I said, I can't believe it's the 50th already. Rossmoor goes back with a dream, and that dream was by a man of Ross Cortese. And this is a picture of Ross Cortese. This was a photograph that was sent out to all the newspapers for the press releases. There were some comments made, but again, the concept of a senior community was an unknown entity in the building trade of the early 1960s. But a man from California had already begun to change that by building 3 successful senior communities in Southern California. And then in 1962, this 47-year-old builder was about to repeat his California success in New Jersey on the East Coast. That person was Ross Cortese, who started this community and after whom it is named. Now, what is the trick? And this man is unbelievable for how he was able to pick this location at that time. And again, the crystal ball that this man had, it just didn't happen by chance. He did his research. And what research it was, because think about it. If this spot had not been chosen, the course for Monroe Township would be completely different from how we know it today, if you think about it. And we're gonna continue on. How do you determine to create such a community offering the amenities that would attract buyers and then market the concept to the public of that area? Through his contacts and research in 62 and 63, Ross Cortese identified an area in central New Jersey that seemed to have all the right factors. And you know what? By looking at that, it's obvious. Philly and New York City. And let's not forget the Jersey Shore. That's a nice added extra attraction. And Atlantic City, which wasn't even built yet. Think about that one. But again, it was mostly farming, like I said, with a great deal of open land. Now on this map, it's kind of hard to read, but it does show all the other amenities along the way and our accessibility. But one of the things that was a condition of this being built here was that the town fathers had to convince the New Jersey Turnpike for an exit right here at your doorstep. That would be exit 8A. So in the early 60s, Mr. Cortese met with the town fathers. The mayor at the time was Ed Shepanek. Now, Ed Shepanek should ring a bell to you a little bit. His son lives here, Ed Jr. They also used to own Heights Farm Equipment, which just closed this year, and it's on Applegarth and Route 33. Ed Shepanek, along with the committeeman at that time, because it was not an open form of government, it was a committeemanship form. They met and had a lot of talks. The mayor and committeemen were pretty confident they could establish an exit right over here. Once they did that, it was welcome to Rossmoor in 1962, and that's my memory of Monroe. Beautiful fields of topsoil. You know, we used to grow corn, soybeans, potatoes, tomatoes. Rossmoor consisted of a few farms. One of them was the herb farm, and it's located where the Rossmoor Golf Course is located today. In fact, a drinking well that was on the property is still in use today for the golf course. Then there was the Carazzi property, a potato farm just adjacent to the herb farm. One of the original buildings that still exists is on the corner of Applegarth and Prospect Plains. Now, this is an old photograph taken around the 60s, and the building hasn't changed much. But at that time, it was shared by the Leisure World Corporation and the Monroe Township Police Department. Because we were sort of like Mayberry here, you know. I'm not kidding, and you'll see why. I guess with the fact that we did not have Otis. Otis was not here. One building, it's still here, and today that is the Levinson Realtors office complex. And no, the police department is not there today. They moved on to bigger and better. There was an interesting fact and story about this. At the time, Mr. Cortese was working late at night, and again, one floor was shared by the police department, the other by the Leisure World Corporation. And he was in there working, and when he came back, he found bandits had broken into the building, and the police department was right downstairs. It was embarrassing. They were not caught. But it's safe to say today that the current police department has never been broken into. Okay, so we're in good hands, trust me. Now, you talk about a man with a vision. Now, I don't know if many of you know this. I work for the utility department, which is right down the street. And I know you know where that is because I send you a bill every quarter, okay? Sorry about that, but it happens. He had a dream and a vision. And over here is a blow-up of that map. I want you to come up later afterwards and take a look. Not only was he building Rossmoor, he had dreams and contracts with local farmers for their properties to build Rossmoor, which is called Village 1. Village 2 was to where the industrial park is. Village 3 is where Whittingham and Greenbrier are located. Village 4 is where Clearbrook is located. And Village 5 is Concordia and the Ponds. And now, yes, Encore, I do not want to forget them. They were up and over here. But this was to be an entire self-sustaining complex with multiple clubhouses, riding stables. Unbelievable, the dream. Village 1, which is Mutual 1, was 418 acres planned for residences and an addition of 108 acres devoted to a golf course. Altogether, this first village was a total of 526 acres or 0.822 square miles. The other 4 villages, ranging from 314 to 688 acres, would follow if Village 1, today Rossmoor, proved successful. And it was successful. In 1963, Art Phillips became the first attorney to work for the Leisure World Corporation. That building was near where Rossmoor's North Gate is. The purchase was a huge tract of land covering the area that now includes today's adult communities, all of them that I just mentioned. That total cost was expected to be $500 million in 1962-63 monies. Can't imagine, I can't count that high for today, what it would cost. On May 8, 1964, the plans for the property were made public. Sadly, though, and Mr. Phillips, you might remember this, the mayor of Monroe Township Ed Shepanek did not survive to see this take place in May. He was coming home from a celebration. Some of the people had told me it might have been from news of securing Rossmoor coming or Leisure World coming to Monroe Township. And for some unknown reason, his car left the road, Applegarth Road, into a drainage ditch, and he was killed instantly at age 52 years old. He left his wife, daughter, and 2 young sons to run the Heights Farm equipment on their own, which they successfully did up until last year. All 3 retired, and they're in their, I don't want to say how old, I'll get in trouble. Ed may be lurking about. Okay. Believe it or not, this is Forestgate Drive and Applegarth Road in 1963. Now, as you can see, if you pulled up to that farm-like intersection, this looks like a garage sale. But, you know, we didn't really have a real DPW then either, so this is the best we could do with street signs. I mean, here you had Forestgate Country Club 200 yards away, which is in the background, and you had that Rossmoor Corporation office, which the police department was sharing, and then the sales info was down there. And then I love this little handmade Forestgate Inn. Does anybody remember Forestgate Inn? Okay. That's where the Taverna Europa place is now. The Greek restaurant, I butchered that. You know where I'm talking about. It was over the Bridge Inn, Tony Lane's, the Firehouse Eatery. I'm sure I'm forgetting 2 more, but that's where that was. And they actually had a package store. You could buy alcohol and liquor there, and behind that was the restaurant at the time. Now, this is a great picture. This is Forestgate Drive before Rossmoor. And this is today the westbound lane that takes you toward the turnpike if you leave Rossmoor. Part of the approvals was that they were to enhance Forestgate Drive and add the eastbound lanes, double lanes that exist today. Now, I used to talk to some of the older residents here, and they used to drag race here in the 40s and 50s, and this had a nickname. It was Double Trouble Road. Don't ask me why it was double the trouble, but I'm sure they had reason. And Mr. Kokel and Joe Brenner told me fond stories of racing their 48 Buicks against each other on this road, unbeknownst to the police department. They were probably busy looking for those burglars that were broke into their police station. So, neat picture. There, it happened. Exit 8A, 1966 was the ribbon cutting. I'm going to point out a few people here. Some of you may know them, some of you may not. This is Walter Lloyd Chamberlain, a committeeman. This is Michael J. DePiro. Public Works is presently named after him. He went on to be a councilman for 30 years here. He stepped down to be the Public Works director. Sadly, he died suddenly of a heart attack years ago, and the town named the Department of Public Works complex after him. This is, I think, George Etch. The Etch family's still in town. This is Walter Jr. Chamberlain. I believe this is Peter Garibaldi, who would eventually serve as a mayor of Monroe Township. The other two, I do not know. Mr. Phillips, maybe you could help me out later to identify them. This is the view off of the New Jersey Turnpike from the Forest Gate Drive Bridge. If you were standing on it, this is what you would have seen prior to Exit 8A being built over here. As you notice, it's a farm, which is gone now. The exit now, the ramp is way up here. You'd get off, come in, and pay the tolls. The original toll that when they did open was basically one booth. There was that little traffic. And you took a little driveway to Forest Gate Drive to a stop sign to make a left or right. That's how little traffic there was here. But that's a great picture, and it gives you a good sense of what the area looked like. Here we are back at that Village 1 map, aka Rossmoor, Leisure World. And work soon began, and the farmland appearance of Monroe changed very quickly. We had many farming operations. We had dairy. We had Forest Gate Farms, and a lot of you remember Forest Gate Farms. But what I miss is Buxton's. Do you remember Buxton's with the little pink containers of ice cream? And I think my father still has a couple of those pink containers. They're full of nuts and bolts now. But remember the big bucks? Do you remember that? It was 50 scoops of ice cream, and if you ate the whole thing, you got it for free. And they did not pay for the hospital trip. That's what I remember. But that's a true story, 50 scoops. And that was located across the street from Rossmoor. Again, this shows construction, and this little arrow, there's the Forest Gate Farms, and some of you remember the giant silos that were there. They kept in this one building, there was 2,000 head of cattle kept in that one building. And they were all kept on the second floor, by the way. There was a huge ramp, and the cows were herded up the ramp. Unbelievable, unbelievable. But again, this shows the progress they're making, and I really wish I had this car. Boy, I tell you, I missed that one. In 1965, when you drove along Applegarth Road, it looked like this. This is a great photo. Now, I'm going to tell you, you're not going to believe me, but you're going to have to believe me. This is the railroad crossing on Applegarth Road. Just over that on the left would be the Apple Plaza Shopping Center. Okay? Isn't that something? And I think I see Sheriff Andy Taylor in the back there. Now, there's what it looks like today. Isn't that something? What a change. What a change. And as the building continued, the fields in the area changed. It began to look like this. We traded the cornfields for construction sites. And this is close to my heart, this picture, because I work at the utility department. And if it wasn't for Mr. Ross Cortese, I would not be employed today. Thank you. Because if you notice on this map over here, to support all of this infrastructure, you needed water and sewer, because septic and well was simply not going to work. So in the plans and in the approvals, he was to build and provide for the township a utility department, an authority. And in 1965, the Monroe Township Municipal Utilities Authority was created by the town fathers with the understanding that after a couple of years, it would be officially turned over to the township, because there'd be like a warranty on a car. He would have to own it for a couple of years, work out the bugs, and then after a couple of years, it would be just like a maintenance bond, basically. My office, where I work out of, that building still exists today. We've more than quadrupled the size of the building, and it's the infrastructure. But again, it all started with this man, and the company he created was Forest Gate Sanitation, Inc., and also there's Forest Gate Water, Inc., two companies that did eventually become the township utility department, and we still exist today. Now you all know what that is, right? That's the guard shack. Now that's what makes Rossmoor Leisure World unique, because there was a lot of conjecture going back and forth. Who had the first? Was Leisure World the first retirement village in New Jersey? And it went back and forth. I don't think it was the first, but we've come to a consensus that it was the first gated community in the East Coast in New Jersey. And again, it was an upscale, and it continues to be an upscale community. Very unique. The construction techniques, very, very high standard. And again, this is a great picture. I think it's a Country Squire Ford wagon. Again, you can see the community meeting house in the background is completed. And this is them really going to town. Again, these beautiful stone walls. Now these stone walls, some of you remember, they used to line Forsgate Drive. They were beautiful, went on for hundreds of feet, and they had to be removed for improvements down the line for future widening projects. Again, there's the community house. I love these Kodachrome photographs. They really give it rich color. I really feel that digital today doesn't capture the Kodachrome color from the 60s and 70s. But this picture was taken by Dick Clayton. He was the vice president of Forsgate Farms at the time, and he would wander, trespass, I guess, over here and take pictures and sneak back to his desk. And he has a series of really nice photographs like this of the involvement of Rossmoor. Now here's just, I believe this is right here, the clubhouse. Now what's unique about this is, I want you to take notice the California trend that he brought to us over here. These are cement tile roofs. And I think another picture, Dr. Parker, shows later on how those tiles were installed. Here's a map of the area, what it was like when you came here and you wanted to pick somewhere to live, and that would help you. Now that is Mutual 4, but that really, Mutual 4 was the original construction site. That was the model area in 1965, 66. Then Mutual 1, 2, and 3 were open for sale. Again, another great picture off the meeting house, looking toward Forsgate Drive. You can see the country club up in the corner. The water tower does not exist today. That was torn down for the fairways across the street development. Some of you may remember that water tower. That was a Forsgate Water Corporation tower. Any of you remember the LPGAs that were filmed here, and they used to have them at the Forsgate Country Club? Remember the big PGA tournaments? Channel 7, Channel 4, they would televise those events. Well, they would actually mount their television cameras on the top of that water tower and film a lot of the event from that location. Again, more construction activity. Things are starting to take shape. And here's that picture I was telling you about, those tiles. Instead of asphalt shingle tiles, these were actually little squares of cement, and they had an architectural design to them, and they were laid one at a time, very painstakingly. And then they're even adding these chimneys. Now, up until the hurricane that we experienced, I thought those were functioning chimneys until I saw a couple of them laying in the street and said, oh, that was just a prop. But I tell you, it made the house look really nice. I mean, they built these beautiful federal-style New England homes, and he really gave you a sense of a nice existing community. And there is that picture. No expense was spared, as you can see. It's like a postcard picture. Look at that photograph. That's what you would have seen here, coming in 1967, 66. Growing up, now I'm on the outside of the gates looking in. As a kid growing up in the early 70s, there was a show called In Search Of. Leonard Nimoy was the host, and about 12 or 13 I was into this show, and they had an episode of Amelia Earhart. It was always these mysteries he was investigating, and what happened. And one day you start to hear, we were at the local grocery store, at Rom Weber's General Store on Public Road right around the corner. People are talking about, did you hear Amelia Earhart is living in Rossmoor? Word spread all around that she would, now I'm 12, 13, I got to meet this woman, and you know what? I never got to meet her. She somehow escaped Monroe without me finding her, but there were actually newspaper articles written about this. There was another person allegedly living here. We'll get to that later. We have a question for you. Where in the community was Leisure World Globe located? Does anybody remember that? How could you forget the Globe? Oh, you're cheating. So you're showing the picture. So the Globe was on the northwest corner. It's where that assisted care facility is now. But the Globe was constructed by John Maltese Iron Foundry in New Brunswick. How do you get that here? You can't drive it on a truck. They cut it and basically constructed half of it, flew it over, and put it together on this rod, this shaft, and it actually rotated. And they had a waterfall. It stood on this beautiful stone base, and there were actually rooms under here. This isn't just a concrete slab. And I'm a little ashamed to tell you that once the globe was removed, that area sort of went vacated, and not much to do around Monroe Township when you're a teenager with a hot rod. We would say, hey, let's meet at the Globe tonight. Well, the Globe wasn't there, but we'd all meet there and we'd go. It was all clean fun, I promise. We all survived. Okay, most of us have families now, but that became a party place. I hate to tell you, back in the 70s. Beautiful Globe. Now, I may be wrong, but I did hear later that, again, the Globe was removed to another location, but I heard, and if somebody could ever substantiate this, I'd love to see some documentation. I heard that one of the stories was the Globe was tethered, lifted up by a helicopter, and was in transport, and the tether broke, and it crashed to the ground. It was headed south, somewhere like way south, didn't make it, is what I heard. So, it's a shame. But it was on the northwest corner. And it was a landmark on the New Jersey Turnpike. We used to give directions, make a right or left at the Globe. You can't miss us. But now it's gone forever. There was a landing strip associated with the Forest Gate Country Club. Does anybody know where that was? Okay, there was Forest Gate Air Park. Forest Gate Air Park, you can see just a little glimpse of the runway here, was across Applegarth Road. It's where Center Drive is now. There's some doctor's offices over there. The firehouse is over there. That was a landing strip. Who built it? John Abeal, the owner of Forest Gate Country Club. He was the grandson of the guy who originally built Forest Gate Country Club and owned Forest Gate Farms. He liked to fly planes, so why not? I'll build myself an airport. Great to have a rich father, isn't it? It's awesome. But it was not only for pleasure use. It was to fly in celebrities, Arthur Godfrey, people like that. Some big bands came in, flew in, and they would go across the street to Forest Gate Country Club, entertain, or just have dinner, and fly back out. But that airport was basically used mostly in this area for crop dusting when we had a lot of farms. There were a lot of biplanes, Stearman. I have pictures of a lot of biplanes lined up. They actually had a little air tower. Marcia Kirkpatrick used to work there. They used to send out Christmas cards, and it had a little airport logo on it. A Rossmoor resident, he's no longer living, his name's Frank Stillwell. Did everybody know Frank Stillwell? Yeah. He was a World War II fighter pilot. He flew P-51 Mustangs during World War II. He used to escort the big bombers over Germany. Frank was a soft-spoken guy, didn't say much, but when he did, you wanted to listen because it was very interesting. I'm talking to Mr. Stillwell because I was doing some research for a book on Monroe, and he breaks out a picture of this P-51, and there's a bunch of school kids around it. And he said back then there were these metal drives, fundraisers during the school days, and these kids, apparently their money went to build his fighter plane, and he was very proud of that photo. Well, he goes on to tell me that he did a few missions over Germany, successfully came back safely. One of his last missions he ever flew, he was taking off in England, headed to Germany to guide a bombing run. His wingman got up about 3,000 feet with him, and they clipped wings midair, had a midair collision. Both planes plummeted to the earth. His parachute opened, his buddy didn't open. He crashed and was killed instantly. They were so low that Frank's leg or ankle was shattered when he hit the ground. He was taken away to a hospital, and I don't think he ever flew again after that. Fast forward about 30 years later, and we're sitting in his room, his kitchen having coffee. He said, let me get this, let me show this to you. And he brings out this hunk of metal. It's all rusted and mangled, and there were a couple of gun shells attached to it. And I said, what is this? He goes, you're not going to believe this. I got this in the mail about 3 months ago from England. I said, what is it? He goes, would you believe what they basically buried my plane in this farmer's field where I crashed, and it was unearthed last year by archaeologists. Well, these archaeologists, very ingenious, they actually found the engine, got a serial number off it, contacted Washington, D.C., and connected the two, that he was the pilot of that plane that crashed. And as a token, and the interview they did with him, they sent him a piece of his plane. He thought that was pretty neat. So interesting story. Nice, very nice man.
Is that Applegarth Road?
This is Applegarth Road, correct.
When was it bowed around Rossmoor?
It was bowed probably around that time when they moved it. I think probably 62 or 63.
Before the building?
Before the building started, yes, correct. An advertising campaign for the newly developed Leisure World, New Jersey, used a film strip projector to demonstrate Rossmoor and to advertise. Would you like to hear it? Would you like to see it? Okay, Dr. Parker, do your magic. Oh yeah, that's the camera that it sat in, that they found upstairs, and they were actually able to get it working again. And this is what it looked like.
How do you do? I'm Robert Moon, Sales Director for the Leisure Worlds. The colorful globe behind me has become a familiar symbol of a wonderful new way of life to over 21,000 Leisure Worlders in Laguna Hills, Seal Beach, and Walnut Creek, California. Others are now rising in the East and Midwest. Leisure World Maryland near Washington, D.C., Leisure World near Chicago, and right here at Leisure World, New Jersey. Leisure Worlds are far more than magnificent manors, more than golf courses and clubhouses. The most important part is the part you cannot see, spirit. The spirit of warm friendships, of belonging, of security, of carefree, fun living. Let's meet some of the people who are already enjoying the Leisure World way of life.
Having looked everywhere and having lived in another similar community, I can say without qualification that Rossmoor Leisure World is the best. I am absolutely happy and contented, and frankly, I've never been busier in my life. The education and recreation activities are almost too much to keep up with. All the dances, the bridge club, and of course I love to ride. What a magnificent setting for horseback riding.
The comforting feeling of security and protection is another important plus at Leisure World. Meet Mrs. Kennedy, wife of retired Admiral Marvin Kennedy of Walnut Creek, California.
There's a wonderful sense of security. If I want to take a walk at 3 o'clock in the morning, I feel perfectly free to do so. And so do all my friends. The security guards make the difference.
One of the most frequently asked questions is, do we have to be retired to live in Leisure World? Of course not. As a matter of fact, hundreds of Leisure Worlders are still working and will continue to work while enjoying the freedom and fun of Leisure World living. For example, Mr. C.A. Stutzman of Laguna Hills.
Yes, I'm still active as a sales consultant with a company I've worked for 18 years. And while I have reached retirement age, I still have the opportunity to work. Because we are living here at Leisure World, I don't have the problems of maintenance and upkeep of a big house.
Some of the work that he does involves his going out of town on short trips. And now I can go with him because I don't have to worry about the house.
Now you too may enjoy this wonderful new Leisure World way of life with luxurious manners in the colonial and Cape Cod styles, designed by Royal Barry Wills, leading architects of this area. You will find many different exterior designs, spacious manners, a variety of floor plans, a manor designed to fit the needs of almost everyone, each with all-electric heat and air conditioning, closed-circuit television, and an all-electric kitchen, including frost-free refrigerator with freezer, oven, range, food warmer, garbage disposal, and some with dishwashers. Here you see the model area, where you can take a leisurely tour of all the manors and determine which one appeals to you the most. The first of 8 clubhouses, which will include game rooms, sewing, woodworking, ceramics, library, art studio, billiards, square dancing and ballroom dancing, little theater, singing groups, adult education classes, bridge, chess, checkers, and so on. Outside activities will include 2 full-size 18-hole golf courses, swimming pools, riding stables, lawn bowling, and shuffleboard. One of the 2 interfaith chapels where various denominations may conduct their services. In addition to the chapels, 7 church sites will be donated so that different faiths may worship in their own manner within Leisure World. The overall master plan of Leisure World, New Jersey, approximately 30,000 units, with a population of about 50,000 residents. So welcome to Leisure World, New Jersey, ideally situated adjacent to the New Jersey Turnpike, opposite Forest Gate Country Club, 42 miles from New York, 32 miles from Newark, and 46 miles from Philadelphia, minutes away from the major attractions of the East Coast. We cordially invite you to consider joining the more than 21,000 active, happy people who are already enjoying this new way of life. Your Leisure World representative will be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Wow, wasn't that neat? Wow. So how many of you do go for 3 a.m. walks? It's a little crazy. Even for 1965, that's a little racy. What's she doing out there at 3 a.m.? I don't want to know. I don't want to know. And then the horseback riding thing, I don't think was such a great idea. I don't know where that came from, but had to be a California thing maybe. But I went horseback riding about 2 years ago, and I'm still feeling it. So, again, here we go. We have the building that has Sal's now, the deli. This was actually a bank when I was a kid. Remember the bank that was there? Yeah, okay, yeah. Now this was the billboards that you'd see. They would be around the area, and this probably off the turnpike you would see this. Turn here, don't miss us. Get off the new exit 8A. And the official opening was October 15th this week, 1965. Now on that day, they had a lot of dignitaries here. They actually provided the buses, which were cool, these little mini buses. I don't know whatever became of them, but they had the logos, and they shuttled people around. It'd be neat interesting where they wound up. Actually, Governor Hughes came for the opening. I do not think Governor Hughes, or the current governor is coming to Monroe, but we'll be here. This is great. I love when Dr. Parker does this, the superimposing of the now and then. And that's the flagpole location where it is today. There is a little monument there that's still there today by the flagpole, and that's where the sales office was originally. Again, I don't think the clubhouse was near enough ready, so they had to construct this tent, and everybody after the ceremony moved over to the tent. I'm sure you know what I said about the food comment. You don't want to miss that. But this is great. The information at the bottom here, whoever put this information, the audience was 533. It had to be an accountant, this guy that was doing this. Again, another picture of the tent. And as you entered the tent, there was the dignitary table. Again, Governor Hughes, center stage. This is an actual program from that day. At the head table, you could see everybody that was seated there. There's Governor Hughes addressing the crowd, Nelson Case, famous radio announcer. That is the family crest, the Cortese from the 17th century Italy. And it's in reverse, and this was the crest of Leisure World as it was used. And we even had a band, 4-piece band. Again, this is a picture of the same day. People are out there looking around, checking out the grounds. And again, no expense was spared. All hand-laid brick. You just didn't see this in New Jersey or on the East Coast at this time. This was a man who was well ahead of his time, but knew what he was doing. Again, the original model areas, we now know it as Mutual 4, was open to the public at the time of the dedication in 1965. And again, it offered 19 floor plans. Mature trees had been planted to make it appear that it was a well-established New England village. There was a woods on the western border of the golf course, and that included the remains of an earlier nursery where the azaleas in bloom created a springtime fairyland. And also picnic tables and residents were set up for them to enjoy. Again, here's another picture of the grand opening, and it's just totally manicured. And note again those beautiful slate roofing material at the front of the clubhouse. Pioneers of Rossmoor, there they are. Don't know their names. Lost to history. The billiard room. Here we are stepping back a little bit in time. Now this is the construction of the community hall. And superimposed today, you can't see it because of all the beautiful mature trees that were planted. Another beautiful picture. I mean, this place was just a beautiful garden oasis, and it still is today. And this is a great picture, another postcard picture. I love it when you do that. It gets better and better every year, doesn't it? I'm in the communities quite often, and I got to tell you, Rossmoor is my favorite. You look at these pictures, and what do you think of Rossmoor? Class. It still has class. And it just has a charm that the other communities, no matter how well they're built and how they look, they just don't hold a candle to Rossmoor. You had your own newspaper. That's Volume 1, Issue 1. And what's neat is you have this great collection archives upstairs in the closet of Rossmoor. It goes back to the beginning. And I was talking to Ms. Cortese tonight about it. And this collection needs to go the next step. It needs to be documented. It needs to be scanned digitally. It needs to be preserved for the 100th. Because luckily it did last all these years in that little closet. And the closet's safe. Yes, it's sitting there safe in that closet. But it needs the next step. Dr. Parker, thank goodness for you, because you started the process. You've actually done some research. You've done the documentation, some scanning. It'd be nice for Rossmoor to, maybe you could make a club, save the Archives of Rossmoor Club. The winter months are coming. I don't like winter anymore, but you're stuck inside. What a great project. Maybe get a club, start this project, get it scanned, and that way it'll last in perpetuity. And all the newspapers are up there. They're in bound books. You can go back and read every year of the Rossmoor Leisure World News. And again, 1966 of June, construction of Mutuals 1 and 2 and 3 began, and it was about the date of the paper when it started. And meanwhile, the models of Mutual 4, completed earlier in October 65, were available only for sales demonstration purposes. And there's a little note there that says, swimming, billiards, and crafts were being offered in June 66. No horseback riding, okay? 6 months before the first resident arrived in January 67. This is a great aerial of Rossmoor in its infancy, and notice that beautiful green plush golf course you have. But it always, that didn't happen right away. It wasn't easy. That summer they planted seed, but there was a big drought. The seed didn't take. So as a last resort, Mr. Cortese ordered the entire course to be totally sodded. I don't know what kind of 1966 money that was, but I gotta tell you, that had to probably hurt. But again, it was the dream. That's how much this man believed in this. He had a course dedication on November 9, 1966. Ross himself teed off the first golf ball. Gene Sarazan, Jim Warga, Jim Fisher, and Peter Lynn Hayes gave a driving, chipping, and putting exhibition. Interesting. And then over here is Peter Lynn Hayes. He was an American vaudeville entertainer. I personally don't remember him. He was a songwriter and film and television actor. He and his wife, Mary Healy, were the original singers of the 1950 Chevrolet jingle by Dinah Shore, remember? We're going to try. If you listen, can you hear it? Can you hear Dinah, though? Really? You can hear it? You hear? There's Dinah. I remember Dinah Shore, okay? We don't need Leonard Nimoy to find her. So I know where she is. Okay. Desmond Muirhead was the head golf architect. He created the golf course in 1966. He was born in England in 1923 and educated at Cambridge University as a land planner and architect. Edward Pasdor, I probably butchered that, publisher of Executive Golf magazine, for which Muirhead wrote for 16 years, said in a 1997 article that Muirhead had coined the phrase golf course community, another first. And every golf course and community built in the last 30 years were based on his innovative designs. His concept was that the golf course determined the shape of the community and not the other way around. So true. Here is the first pioneer woman of Rossmoor. She moved in January 18th, 1967. And getting back to the rumors, Amelia Earhart again, circling around Rossmoor. There she is. And I distinctly remembered a photograph in the home news that there was a woman they thought was Amelia. But you know what? And it makes sense because the airport was right across the street. She could fly in and out of Leisure World at her leisure. But we never did find her. And this is true. And again, the rumors were spreading. Anastasia, we found her. She also wound up in Leisure World, Rossmoor. That's another true story. But Leonard Nimoy never found her. We never found her. I don't know. The name of the community changed from 1967 from Rossmoor Leisure World, New Jersey to Rossmoor, and a concession to the fact that over half of the residents tended to continue working when they came to the community. And again, it was the place, that location that he picked, Philly, New York, it enabled people to still work and get home in time and enjoy their life. But the word leisure did not describe why most came. So instead, based on an independent market survey, Mr. Cortese commissioned, and it became apparent that the new buyers primarily wanted to enjoy owning a high-quality home and use facilities with a low monthly charge as they continued to work. And the lucky ones did have a dishwasher. Not all you ladies were that lucky. The name was changed so that it was not a negative for the prospective residents. Again, that's what your swimming pool looked like. My son worked here as a gate guard years ago. Has some interesting stories to tell, let me tell you. Yeah, I'm not going to go there. The Rossmoor swimming pool was officially opened on June 10, 1967, with a special exhibition of diving and swimming. It was not until April 1969, after Mutuals 1, 2, and 3 were finally completed, that Mutual 4 was incorporated, allowing its model homes to be sold at last. So you and Mutual 4 thought you were getting a new home. You got the model, but hey, you know what? They're still there today. Work on Mutual 5 began in November '69 under new owners. That's the same year Rossmoor was sold. The full construction of Rossmoor continued until the last Mutual 17, was completed November 1993. I personally was among the inspectors that did inspect the sanitary and water mains that went in those last few Mutuals here before I was promoted. And again, thank goodness for the insight of the utilities, because the utilities expanded well into Monroe Township. Not only Rossmoor is approximately 3,500 residents, the entire system that the utility services today is over 20,000 customers. It took 30 years to complete. The finished Rossmoor of 1993 has now been in place for over 22 years, and it couldn't look better. Look at that. That picture's not from 1967, it's from this year. And of course, our acknowledgments to Ross Cortese for his creativity and for having a vision ahead of his time. Our community would not be as beautiful or as special if it had not been for this man. In addition, we respect that he and his family have generously supported cause after cause on behalf of the senior citizens everywhere. More acknowledgments out to Gene Horan, the former editor. I'm sure a lot of you remember him or know him. He was at today's earlier presentation, and it was great to see him again, and he loved the presentation. And again, Mr. Art Phillips, there you are, legal advisor, much of the historical information about the community. And we can go past that guy. And the Joseph Caracappa, his black and white construction photographs, yes, they still survive up in that closet. He took a lot of those photos, and thank goodness he did, because it's a nice record of the community in its infancy. And of course, to Dick Clayton, the photographer of the colored photographs. Again, it gives such a rich feeling to what in the area looked like and what Rossmoor, as it was being constructed, looked like. And again, special appreciation to those 6 men, but also to many others who have shared their, almost. And here we are at the end. Rossmoor 2015. I get the hint. So this concludes the mini history of Rossmoor, and thank you for coming. And okay, thank you.